Some cities have towers, others have bridges. There might also be a mosque, known as the symbol of the city, or a mill. But very few cities have beautiful people who have become their symbols. Here is my beautiful city. We started recording the beautiful people of Silivri to help future residents understand the spirit of my town. To the Symbols of the City project. While walking through the streets of Silivri, sometimes you see them passing by quietly, sometimes defending their beliefs loudly, sometimes lost in thoughts about Silivri, and sometimes rushing to help their loved ones. To get to know these people who passionately love this city and dedicate their lives to contributing something to it, we first asked their loved ones, them...
Yes. Hello, dear friends. I am Hussein, Cahit Yüceland, also known as Hamza Bey. You would know me as such back in the day. The Republic's 10th year anthem was sung the year of my first birthday. Today, the unsung 10th. My annual salary is... It started being sung in the first year of my birthday. You can guess my age then, I won't say it. I am the child of a civil servant. During those times, that is, from the proclamation of the Republic to today, in the time that has passed. In many parts of the country, we traveled due to my father being a civil servant and taking on duties. I can name at least 15 places for you. I can name at least 15, 20 provinces or districts. In that respect, I can say I have traveled every inch of Anatolia. Since my childhood, that is. But during these travels, so that our schooling wouldn't be disrupted, my late father made sure we were within the conditions of that time, participated in competitions, exams conducted with a competition for military high schools. He hoped for enrollment, and we entered the military high school through an exam.
Well, my father is just as good inside the house as he is outside the house. The same energetic, thinks of everything. Very helpful to his wife. Yes, I mean, he can do any kind of work.
A very different personality, a very different character. Very mature, someone who has digested many things and has lived life to the fullest, and by drawing various lessons from these constantly. Teaches others, inspires and serves as an example truly for our region, his close surroundings, and especially for us. It is a great advantage to live with him.
There isn't a very strict discipline. I have never seen it. We grew up freely. Both my brother and I grew up very freely. Always according to our wishes. They acted... Of course, they pointed out our mistakes, but generally it was always what we wanted.
While studying at the military middle school, our music teacher, after the research and examination, we were taken to the music section of the band. Enrolled us in the band section related to music. At that time, they taught us to play the saxophone, tuba, and clarinet. When I came to Kuleli Military High School, I was forming the band of Kuleli Military High School. Back then, until the year 1953, I studied at Kuleli Military High School. İlhan Feyman, his orchestra. İlhan Feyman, Erol Sidal. These are my valuable friends and companions. While conducting the band at the club, my band members and I would make music together. From that day to this, I never forget them.
My father, like me, finished military high school and then left. We share that fate as well with my father later on during this period as well. His musicianship developed professionally. My father is someone who can play the trumpet, saxophone, and clarinet very well. Although he no longer plays, he speaks of it with praise. During the 500th anniversary of the conquest of Istanbul, in the year, he was the band conductor of the orchestra that welcomed Queen Elizabeth. I guess that was in 1953. My father was 21 years old then. 1953-1931, he was 21 years old. Therefore, such a musician, such a sportsman, let's also say a good painter and artist in oil painting, along with being a musician. He has such an identity.
My award. My award in life, I learned most things from him. I have been by his side for many years, approximately 19 years. I tried to move towards his perspective on life. But of course, because his outlook on life is very different, catching up to him is impossible. I grew up beside him. I got married. My child was also by his side. The path I walk is in his footsteps. Every morning when I arrive, he is here. He welcomes us warmly and sends us off warmly. In life, he is the person I have learned the most from. In fact, he is the person I have learned more from than my own father. Because I didn't see my father as much as I saw him. I didn't live with him. Because in the years I came, he was younger, more dynamic, and even now, for his age, he is still dynamic. Hopefully, we will also be granted long lives like his and become resilient and successful like him. And raise our children like he did. That's our wish. That's him.
Cahit Yüceland is one of the first sprouts of the newly established republic. His anchoring in Silivri after a life spent all around Turkey is undoubtedly one of the greatest fortunes for our town. The experiences he gained over many years are taken as an example by those who know him, adopting them as a principle in their own lives. Let's continue to listen to the work experiences of our Uncle Cahit, who has taken his place among the symbols of the city.
After leaving the military in 1957 in Istanbul, we embarked on our business life. In my business life, I had to work as a chief, manager, and general manager in various places. To explain from the very beginning, I started backward as a personnel chief at Dilberler's factory in Zeytinburnu. From there, I moved to the personnel management of Vaco. From there, Aslan Cement Factory. I moved to the personnel management of Aslan Cement Factory. While working at Aslan Cement at that time, the diligent Turgut Özal was our consultant. He was the general consultant of the factory. Anyway, after that, Efes Bilçen was established. Efes Bilçen came to the personnel management of the beer factory, or rather from its assembly. I was there during the period up to its production. I had a life there. Baineri, a friend of mine in Silivri. We had a brother, a friend named Mustafa Çolakolu. Not a brother, but a friend. You could say he made a request of me. He said, "We are setting up a factory in Silivri. Can you come to this factory and help us?" They said, "What kind of factory?" I asked. They said, "A brick factory." I said, "I don't know what this is. You get involved in the operation for us. Organize its management, leave the rest to us." All right, we said, and we jumped in. In 1937, I left the Darika cement factory and came to Silivri.
I would like to give an example of his humble personality. My father's great uncle is Cahit Yüceland. I don't know if he mentioned it in his own interview. His name being Cahit comes from there anyway. Cahit Yüceland for our friends looking it up on the internet, because it's very normal for everyone not to know. He was the commander of the Circassian tribes during the War of Independence. Later he served as the president of the Supreme Court and as the president of the military Supreme Court. He later served as a member of parliament and then as the Minister of National Defense. One of them, while my father and uncle were studying at Kuleli Military High School during the war years, the school was moved to Konya. The Minister of National Defense comes to inspect Konya. The minister is Cahit Yüceland. He thinks maybe there are nephews of ours here. He says, "Let me see them while I'm here." My father, they call my Uncle Ramsey. They say, well, they find him, bring him, here you go. They talk, is there any affection? He gives a little pocket money if needed. Anyway, and he leaves. After he leaves, the border officers, the school commanders call them. After a good scolding, they say, your uncle, if he is the Minister of National Defense, why didn't we know, they say. So that time's conditions, I think it's a very nice memory, an anecdote about how natural and sincere it was.
Between the factory owner and me, when his words contradicted my desires. And what I wanted to do, I said, I can't continue here. I asked for permission and I left. Just as I was about to move to Istanbul, saying I should go to Istanbul, already news came from Ambala Industry. Mr. Zeki, the late Mr. Zeki, and Mr. Yusuf, who is currently in charge, the Sarabekirs. Would you work with us? They sent word. They had just started their activities and had recently strengthened. We said, let it be for what could be possible. I worked with them for a while, until the year 1987. We worked together, even until 1988. And because our age advanced and the factory grew and started to expand into larger areas and began opening up to new fronts, I had to leave because I was no longer able to respond there due to my age. I had reached that point. I said, it's time to leave and go to Istanbul.
Every memory and anecdote we hear about Cahit Yüceland reveals to us the codes of how he was an Istanbul gentleman, so much so that even though he repeatedly thought about returning to Istanbul at certain periods of his professional life, fate ties him to Silivri, and thus the page of Küpeşte, which restructures the city's social life, entertainment and culture, is opened.
Enough already, Silivri, after saying my life. It was the year 88. While walking in Silivri in the late afternoon, I came to a place I had never visited before. From the shore, further ahead, there is a lighthouse that does not flash, does not light up. There is a path to the lighthouse. You go through the road between the rocks. Pines, grasses and such have grown. No one really passes by. Occasionally, one or two people pass by towards the lighthouse. I got curious. I said, I'm feeling down. The evening swallowed me. I said, let me go and sit there, see for myself. What? Oh, I wonder how the view is. I thought, I came, sat down by the lighthouse. Yes, I came while shivering through the stones and rocks. But when I sat down, it was a magnificent view. Sun, sunset. On the sea, it looked like the sun was rising within it, but of course it was setting. While looking at that, a large group came from behind. But they weren't locals, they were foreigners. They were talking, taking photos, observing the sunset. At one moment, one of them shouted, wow, oh my, or something like that. Everyone started running in one direction. I also thought, I wonder, where are they looking? What are they doing? Believe me, you know, there's a lighthouse right now. That lighthouse doesn't have a door or anything, and it's not working anyway. Well, the lighthouse, apparently, those who come here, I'm sorry, have used it as a toilet. The inside is in a terrible state. They are trying to take photos of it and are shouting. At that moment, I truly felt embarrassed and ashamed as a citizen. How can we fix this place? I thought, an idea crossed my mind. I said, I need to clean this place. I sat down and made a plan. I said, this place, can I turn it into a cafe?
I met Brother Cahit, a prominent figure of Silivri, industrial establishment in Silivri. And in Silivri, in a place called Kulburnu, where people didn't even dare to walk, where they feared. At a time, the railing, still in use today, has been around for over 30 years. I believe it's been around 30 years. Before that, he had brought a project to the late Said Gurgen at that time. That's when we met him. Said Gurgen, the mayor, had prepared a very nice model at the place where the current railing is. He had come regarding this model. I, by coincidence, on that day, I call him Uncle Saeed, that's how I'll remember him, may God rest his soul. I had come to discuss a matter with him. I saw the model, we were waiting outside, the mayor had a guest inside. We were waiting outside, I saw the model, I said, brother, how beautiful this is, what is it? He said, well, it's like this, I want to do something with that girl's nose, and so on. He explained, and I was very impressed. That day was very nice, I had come before him, but when he explained these things, I got excited and said, brother, you go in before me. Let's develop before me, together with the model.
Now, in 1987, in 87, I voluntarily left Bursa Işıklar Military School and I received my diploma. After graduating, since I wasn't given the right to attend university because I left voluntarily, I had a gap year and wanted to do something. I also told my father that I always wanted to go somewhere and work. At that time, Bodrum was starting to become popular, or at least that's how we felt at our age. At that time, let me work somewhere, let me work in a hotel. I knew a foreign language, French. I hadn't gone to Boğaziçi University yet. I thought I could work at the reception, work at the bar, do this and that. And he said, bars, cafes, and the comings and goings too. He said, come, let's open a place in Silivri. Is it possible? Yes, it is. All right? All right. We made the decision within a year. In 1988, we presented the project to the then mayor, Said Gurgen. Or rather, the project and the model were, of course, my father's. I was born in '69, I was only 19 years old. Of course, in our own way, according to our own desires. We tried to give ideas to our father, or we tried to explain what was necessary, what kind of thing we wanted. He, of course, added dozens of things on top and brought it to this point.
I made a model to the best of my ability. I made umbrellas, I made tables, I shaped them according to my own style. I went to see Mr. Cahit and I said, Mr. Cahit, since he knows me from the factory management, we have an acquaintance. I said, I retired. I experienced such an event there. Here I want to make an arrangement. Can you help me? Can I do it? I said, something there.
Of course, he had shared it. In fact, we were witnesses, all of us. Now, our house is already in a place that directly overlooks the railing. And every time my father came home, he would sit and dream about that place. And he would make drawings. He draws very beautifully. He is already very successful in painting. There are many portraits he has done, or many things he has made by hand at home too. There are also photographs. He prepared the project himself by looking. He had prepared a very beautiful model. I was amazed. Even an architect could only do this much.
In March of 1989, elections were held. In the elections, our brother Selami Değirmeci. I both like him and get mad at him, but generally my fondness outweighs. I didn't know him back then anyway. They were elected in the month of April, around April 20th, so it had been about a month since the elections ended. One day again, the model I had previously made was lost. I made a new model, this time right from the start, from the entrance of the road to the end. I took it and brought it. I said, Mr. Salami, I had thought of something like this during Mr. Sayed's time. Now, these places have been transferred to the municipalities. I want to open something here in the form of a tea garden. What do you think?
With Mr. Cahit first, 1989. When we started the job in 1989, I think it was around June, he came with a project in hand regarding that area I tried to implement the project Mr. Cahit envisioned. I recommended it to many of my friends, but no one found it suitable, saying there couldn't be such a place here, because before that the place was very bad. It was used for purposes, a place where alcoholics spent the night. It had become a bad place. Mr. Cahit one day with a model in hand said, "I have such a project for this place, I want to realize it. Would you allow me?" He had exactly put forth what I wanted. It was a project just as I wanted. We immediately consulted with our colleagues and allocated the place to him in the council.
He came, met Mr. President. Mr. President, at that time, Salam Değirmenci really liked the project. He said, let's start immediately, and as the municipality, let's support it. And support was indeed provided. This is how the foundation of Kupechla was laid.
If we start with the tea gardens of that time, the thing that bothered me the most was the division into family and single sections. It was positioned that way. I said there is no place for young people to go because we had many elders, most of whom have passed away. When they came, they would say, come on, get up. Oh, they would say, children, and we would get up as there was no place to sit anyway. I said there needs to be a place for young people to go. With this sparkle, I set out, and here it is. Dice races, Ellen Fossen projects, a beautiful cafe where Bob Marley was appreciated, and a place that was shock-free for young people.
Having brought such places to life, at that time in Silivri, there was a vision that couldn't go beyond a tea garden. People who ensured that our youth was spent beautifully. I can only thank them in this regard. To them...
Yes. I go way back to when that name existed. When we were newly married, there were no tea gardens in the area where Kupesht is located. And at that level, the newly established Kupeshta was about to start, and Mr. Cahit would always be there. I remember reporting on that development in the area as a journalist. That process, I also remember his dreams. When I look back years later, he truly had foresight because that area became very popular. Young people loved that area.
In 1989, the new social life of Silivri began to take shape around the balustrade. His foresight surely left a beautiful memory for almost all of today's middle-aged residents of Silivri. However, Uncle Cahit's imagination was not limited to this. He would continue to implement firsts to contribute to the place he lived.
In 1993, my friends from university established a youth radio in 1992. In Istanbul, I was with them but not physically right by their side. At various times, because traveling back and forth between Silivri and Istanbul and doing something was very difficult. Transportation was difficult. And thanks to them, I started learning radio broadcasting. Quickly, later on, other friends of mine were also doing radio broadcasting in various districts and in Silivri. Taking a bit of inspiration from them, I said, even though there was already an existing and successful radio in Silivri, let's establish a radio. We decided it should be a regional radio, and we established Kupe FM, which caters to the Thrace region.
In 1992, my son, Yüceland, said, father said, I want to do radio broadcasting. He said, what will happen? I will work on radio, but I'm looking for a place. I said, come set it up here. Oh, can we set it up? We will set it up. My son took charge with the radio business. He said, I'm starting. We allocated a small corner of Supershire, a little island. The equipment was set up inside it. He started working.
During that process, when the first private radio broadcast started in Turkey, there wasn't even a permit. We were broadcasting illegally. As Silivri municipality, we had a radio station. Its broadcasts were continuing. Meanwhile, Mr. Cahit and his son, Mr. Cem, also established Kupe FM. They started broadcasting there.
We had to close the municipality because it was prohibited by the municipality. Towards 1991, a craze begins slowly. We were one of the first local radios established in Turkey. Tupe FM was established after us, but Tupe FM had much more resources and a broader range of better things, and they adopted a slightly different type of broadcasting. They didn't delve into arabesque, they didn't delve into art music, they were only broadcasting about Turkish pop music. We were doing all kinds of music.
Here it is. While working on the earring, invent a name for the radio my son set up. What shall we name it? What shall we name it? What shall we name it? I said to my son, radio appeals to the ear. There is also an earring in the ear. And they say, let it be an earring in your ear. Our name is also Küpe. Where do we make its value from? We are making earrings. There are earrings. There is also a radio. Then its name would be Küpe FM. Okay. They said, okay. Thus, Küpe FM was born. The year 1992.
Under the name Uncle Bay on the wooden chair, which was the name of the program, Uncle Bay would regularly conduct his program compiled from columnists every day. Now we listen to the same programs on tape, my father's programs. And we see that life, to be honest, is a repetition. It continues in the same way with conditions, environment, economy, politics, more or less many things are revolving in a critical sense. But what's very nice is that despite the very harsh criticisms he made, whether local, regional, or general, we had very beautiful years of radio broadcasting without any problems. This degree, harsh comments in those years was, in my opinion, a great pleasure. Listening to him was also a great pleasure. He produced very beautiful programs. He made very beautiful programs. I think he has been an example to many young people. We saw his successes there.
First in his educational life, then immediately in his work and family life. The years he spent in radio broadcasting, which were principled and successful, continued in the same vein. Cahit Yüceland's, of course, for someone whose greatest principle in life is to work, it is hardly possible to be satisfied with success or not to set new goals. Thus begin the Uncle Bay years, which those who remember today will agree that there has not yet been another like it.
Right now, behind the Şuhayt tea garden of the Sarıbekir people. I think there was some stock or something. That place used to be an old wheat warehouse. They are doing something there. We wondered what is done here. Out of curiosity, we found out that Cahit abi is making a discotheque there. A discotheque in Silivri, that's a very nice thing.
We arrived at the year 1995. In 1995, we set out to transform Silivri's oldest yogurt factory into a disco nightclub. We also designed a very beautiful texture, incorporating Silivri's historic wooden houses into it, to place using old wood, and by making the residents from various neighborhoods neighbors. Some became kitchens, some became backstage areas, and some became behind the scenes areas. But we brought a very beautiful entertainment venue to Silivri.
I took photos of 7 old houses of the silhouette. I took a photo of the entrance gate of the castle. Then I went to wander around the antique dealers, to wander around the scrap dealers. I went to Üsküdar. There was one in Yenikapı. I went there. There was one in Kırıklı. I went there. From many places, back then old houses were being demolished. Materials, frames, and such were left. Those I could select from them. I collected them from various places, but do you know where I found the most beautiful ones in the end? I found them in Silivri. There was a scrap dealer on the hill. It was like a hit. Doors, trees, this and that. Among them, I found quite a bit of material, and inside the building, 7, the exterior appearance of Silivri houses, we made
an amazing thing. An area of 900 square meters. Inside, the ceilings are beautifully adorned with sacks. A wonderful building at the back, a rather old building, meaning it was acquired from antique dealers. He set up that building there.
Uncle and disco, before it became a disco, in its internal architectural structure in the castle, by observing the houses and producing them one to one, offered a very beautiful space. Visually, it carried more of the castle neighborhood than the disco. A refined, high-quality place where very beautiful artists gathered. It was a place where everyone from Istanbul flowed.
It was a venue that could compete with Istanbul, if I'm not mistaken, on many days of the week. Live music performances were held when appropriate. As I said, it was quite a decent place economically. Silivri also at least contributed, I believe it also contributed to the social development of Silivri in a socio-cultural sense. Places I believe in.
So, look, we're actually taking Silivri back. Back in the 90s, it was a very successful disco in terms of venue, the arrangement as well. It was an extraordinarily beautiful place, but it couldn't be sustained. There weren't enough customers. Maybe we couldn't promote it enough. Altogether, it attracted people from many places. Çatalca, Çorlu, Çerkezköy. It could attract people from all around. It could have been continued. As an investor, of course, when he couldn't achieve the expected profit, he inevitably had to close it down. But consider that approximately 30 years have passed since then. Still, a facility of that value cannot be built. I think those days were very different. It was a very nice idea for that time. I wish it had continued.
This was the story of what Cahit Yüceland managed to fit into nearly half a century spent in this charming town. From his warm story, it is possible to infer the outcomes of always turning a new page, looking to the future with confidence, and taking firm steps. There are dozens more things that could be said about him, without a doubt, but the final word, let's give it to our Uncle Cahit, who, after a life full of achievements, still did not let go of his humility.
Silivri to me is a place where I am pleased because it transformed a person who was used to serving others into someone who tries to serve others. Because I'm very pleased to serve Silivri. I used to serve others in the past until I established Kupeşte. I am pleased because after establishing Kupeşte, I started to serve others. To the people of Silivri, thank you very, very much.
Küpe FM.
Evet efendim, merhaba, ben Amca Bey. Bugün 18 Aralık 96 Çarşamba. Efendim, siyaset, siyasi partiler, siyasetçiler, medya, halk, meydan, demokrasi vesaire bir yığın sözcük. Bu sözcüklerden bazen bir teki, bazen bir ikisi ve bazen de ikiden fazlasının yan yana gelmesiyle meydana çıkan oluşumlarla gündemi oluşturuyor, olayların akışına kapılıp gidiyoruz. Eğitim, sağlık, adalet gibi sorunlarımız bu arada kaynayıp gidiyor. Sanki kimsenin umurunda değil. Ortaya kurulmuş bir sofra, bugünün deyimiyle açık büfe. Herkes kendine uygun bir çeşidi dolduruyor tabağına, sanki geviş getirir gibi çiğneyip duruyor. Ve biz milletçe bu duruma bakıp şu ünlü sözü geçiriyoruz içimizden. Yiyin efendiler, yiyin. Bu hanı yağma sizin. Aksırıncaya, tıksırıncaya kadar yiyin. Evet efendim, şen ve esen kalın.